What is up, everybody? Sinestro here, and today we are taking a look at the final Legion dungeon guide for Court of Stars. When I say final, it's the final for the moment. We've finally got through everything that is available as of the 7.0.3, and we will be definitely taking a look at Karazhan as soon as it comes up. But Court of Stars, it's the second dungeon that you unlock once you reach 8,000 rep into Revered with the Nightfallen. It's a super cool dungeon. There's only 3 bosses, but there's lots of weird stuff that goes on in this dungeon that makes you kind of pay attention a bit more. It's actually quite interesting. So there's like, once you enter the dungeon, you take a little canoe and then you wait for your tank to turn up. As you can see here, I did this with a guild group, and they decided that because they knew I was recording, they were just going to turn themselves into a series of stags just to troll me. But that's XIS for you. We are a bunch of nerds. But here we go. Here comes Tim, finally arriving. Late. He was obviously just watching somebody on his webcam. That's an in-joke that nobody's going to get, but he will, and that's the only thing that counts. But anyway, so once you get off the canoes, you sort of make your way through this very familiar setting if you've been to this area of Suramar. Everything is kind of predictable. This place is almost a carbon copy of the actual area in the zone, but there's just a lot harder mobs in here, and you have to do this as part of a group. So as you go up towards the first boss, who is called Patrol Captain Gerdo, you have the option to take out these sort of like sentry beacons. If you deactivate the sentry beacons, he doesn't call in as many ads during his fight phase. Now, the trash in this place is extremely hard. There's sentries that roam around that you need to make sure that you kill before they call in more trash packs, and there's also the big sort of like arcane guardians. You saw us fight one of them on the bridge that heal up every ally in their sort of like vicinity when they do certain casts. So you need to be having heavy interrupts on those guys, fighting them on their own if possible, killing sentries, and sort of like managing the trash as kind of like well as you can. You can see here there's a sentry that's patrolling around the right of us that we're trying to avoid right here. But we wanted to take this Guardian first on its own, just so that we could deal with its interrupts, because if you don't, it gets really tricky. You can see there, though, however, that we trigger the sentry. Now, luckily, because we are in fairly decent gear, in fact, at this point, some of us have got gear from Emerald Nightmare, it's not too much of a problem for us, but if you didn't, that's really gonna suck, guys. So make sure that you're kind of like managing the sentries, managing the Guardians, and like really, really being careful. Now, this bridge has a lot of potential to be really horrific, because it's sort of like there's sentries that can spawn and like patrol through here, and like you could have the very high potential to overpull, as is the next section, which is actually Patrol Captain Gerdo's like encounter room. There's a lot of trash around here, so you need to be quite slow and methodical in taking it out and just making sure you're being careful, because you can see that the boss is actually patrolling around. Now, we don't actually quite see this, and so we have to kind of like really shift our focus here and so like move back so that we don't accidentally pull the boss. Now, you don't have to disable all of these beacons. It's not something you have to do. It just makes the fight a little bit easier, and just for the guide purposes, we took out a few more than we could. But like at this point here, we actually sort of like pulled a bit more than we should have done. And it actually got to the point where the boss actually came around and we body pulled the boss. So just make sure you're careful and watching him as he patrols. But now, anyway, that you can see that we've engaged Patrol Captain Gerdo, what do you actually need to worry about? He does a spell called Arcane Lockdown. Once the Arcane Lockdown is cast, you need to jump. Now, I don't realize this at this point, having never actually been affected by it before in any of the other runs I've done, including all the ones that are horrific wipe fest. So I actually don't realize that I've got this debuff right now, and my healer is desperately trying to heal me, and he can't. So make sure that if you get Arcane Lockdown, you jump, because otherwise that happens, and that looks really unprofessional in video form when you're trying to make guides about dungeons. But that's like what the main ability for DPS dealers and tanks and healers. So just make sure when you get Arcane Lockdown, you jump. That's pretty much it. Other than that, he's gonna if you don't destroy the signal beacons, he's gonna call in reinforcements. Make sure you kill them because they do a lot of damage. So tanks, make sure you pick those up once they come in. And the only other thing is that at a certain percentage, he's going to run off and try and drink a big potion that is going to increase his damage. It's just a burn phase. Just kill him quickly as soon as he does that. Other than that, he's a pretty simple boss. In fact, most of the bosses in here are pretty simple. It's kind of like the trash and other mechanics that are the harder parts of this instance. But once you kill Gerdo, you make your way up the set of stairs behind him and start moving on to the next section. Now, the lead up to the next boss is kind of important because the trash really defines the boss. There's going to be certain mobs that are marked on your minimap in the upcoming section that you need to kill because, here we go. Talzay Flamewreath, who's the name of the next boss, didn't up to absolutely murder that name. So it's Talzay Flamewreath. She has a lot of big, heavy health pool mobs surrounding her. Now, if you just went up and engaged her, all of them would engage at the same time. You're going to get one shot. It's not going to be a good time. Just before we move on, just want to point out, if you find a chest and then tell all of your group members that there's a chest back there, don't, because they just won't hit. Then your healer goes and gets the chest, and then you just die, because that's great, because your healer wasn't there when you engage trash, and you're not a protection warrior, so you don't top healing meters. But yeah, so just be careful of that. But yeah, you need to kill the mobs surrounding the room that are marked, because once you kill one of these mobs, it calls one of the ads from the boss encounter away for you to fight on its own. You need to do this I think it's 3 to 4 times realistically to get rid of all of the mobs. But the Inquisitors are not the Inquisitors. The marked mobs are not the only way that you can actually get these ads in. There are certain items that are around the place, statues, outlined people, items that are on the floor. Some of these give you buffs, but like only one of your party can actually do them, so you need to like find them and try them. Some of them give you like haste buffs, healing buffs, health pool buffs, things like that, but they also have the potential to call in these ads, so you need to kind of be careful when you're pressing them. Like if you've just engaged one, don't be going and clicking items, just do them at a solo time, and each player in your party is able to activate certain ones. It's random who can do that. It's not really class based. It's just some of you will be able to access some of them and some of you won't. So you can see here we're skirting around the boss here, and you can see she has a couple of ads left, so we've got a couple of more ads to find, and we're just killing one of the rare elites, which was for a world quest that was in here. If you do come against this dog guy, he's not very challenging. He does a big AoE stun that kind of sucks, but other than that, he's a pretty much tank and spank. As with most of the world quest bosses, there's not much there, but they are good artifact power, so even if you have already done the quest, I would highly recommend that you always help out with them, because you're always going to get that extra bit of artifact power, which is always super useful. But once you do that, make sure you take out the rest of the marked mobs, and then you can start making your way towards Talzay Flamewreath. This trash is there's a lot of this trash. Like from watching this back, there is an awful lot of stuff that goes on in this sort of encounter room. And the next section, which is really light on trash, is kind of this. It feels like they kind of overcompensated, especially for the mythic plus aspect, because really you need to kill all of the trash for the mythic plus runs here. It's in the first 2 sections. That's all you've got. So if you're doing this on mythic plus, you're probably going to find yourself killing a lot of this stuff, because the next section is more of a weird scenario encounter bit that you don't really know, so it's kind of weird. So we've just found that you can click one of these statues to summon the last one here, so we're going to summon in the last guy from the boss, kill this fell lord, he does a cleave, all that sort of stuff, things like that. All of these mobs that you summon in for the bosses, they're not really that difficult. It's just standard mechanics. Stand behind it, don't stick it stuck in cleaves, interrupt things when they're available to interrupt, and you'll be fine. Don't body pull trash as well, as me and our Boomkin did. That's really bad. That's something that you shouldn't be doing. As well, it's a funny story about this dungeon guide is that we were trying to be so professional, but it was 12 o'clock at night, and we'd all just got back in from work and things like that, and we were just playing awfully. I died twice, which is, can you believe this is the best run I've recorded of this instance as well? This place and me just don't get on for some reason. But here we go. We've pulled Flamewreath now, and she is a very easy encounter. She's not challenging at all. Don't stand in the fire on the floor. Dispel when you can. Shadow Priest, you're great for mass dispelling. And interrupt her when she casts and things like that, and that's pretty much it. There's nothing that you really need to worry about with this boss. She's super easy. But there you go, guys. That's Talia Flamewreath, and before then we're moving on to Advisor Melandrius. Now, Advisor Melandrius doesn't have any trash. There is no trash before this instance. Instead, you go into this big Nightfallen party. And you talk to NPCs, and they give you clues. And these clues help you locate a traitor that is within the establishment. So you'll talk to guys in here, and they'll say, "Oh, it's a he or it's a she," and they're wearing a cape, and they have a book with them. For ours, for example, was long sleeves, dark clothes, female with a cape and a book. So that was our cues. And if you accuse the wrong person, because we didn't realize it was female at that point, you get teleported out, you lose your disguise, you have to wait for 15 seconds before you can run back in. But once you find the person, you click on them, they tell you to follow them, you follow them outside, they turn into a giant fell lord, you kill them, and then you get the key to enter the last boss chamber. Now, this is a really interesting mechanic, actually, and it's kind of quite cool, especially for Mythic Plus. Like, you're going to be sending all of your people around the place, or like all of your party members typing in chat to sort of like gather, or talking on voice comms to like gather all of the clues together so you can like find the person that you need to find, talk to them, and activate. It's kind of interesting, like, and a slightly different thing. You know, they put some little logic puzzle in that you have to kind of like work out exactly who this traitor is, and then talk to them and like accuse them, and then walk them out and things like that. It's quite cool. We actually quite like it. It's a really, really fun mechanic. But once you do that, you pick up an item off the body. It lets you open up the door to the final boss of the Court of Stars, and the final boss of our dungeon guides are, for the moment, Advisor Melandris. Now, Advisor Melandris is an absolute pushover. For damage dealers, spread out to minimize the damage. He does something called Blade Storm. And keep an eye in the direction of like the images, the way he's facing, just so that you can get out, like you can not get pushed back too far by his wind. To be honest, guys, you don't really need to worry about anything. Like, this fight is literally don't stand in like the swirling winds on the floor, and you're pretty much gonna kill it. We lusted through this, on this, anything up to sort of like I'd say Mythic plus 4 or 5. This guy's not gonna be a challenge. It's all really, really easy. You can see he's doing these like wind blasts here, but you can outrange them really, really easily. It's not hard, guys. Like, the bosses in this place are like probably the least interesting parts of this dungeon. But everything else about Court of Stars is absolutely fantastic. It's a good dungeon. It's a beautiful place. The trash is really interesting. You're going to have a good time in here. And it drops some really, really good loot. Like, this place and the Archway drop some really fantastic sets that are on Mythic Plus going to be really, really good, and really comparable to raid gear as well, especially considering we don't actually have a tier set in this first tier. You're going to want some of the stuff from here. But there we go, guys. That's been the Court of Stars. I hope you've enjoyed this guide. If you did like all of these guides, why not smash this video a like, subscribe to the channel. We'll definitely be putting out Karazhan guides, and there's definitely going to be some stuff about the Emerald Nightmare coming out as well. So we'd love to keep having you come back. But thank you so, so much for watching this guide, guys. I love you all, and I hope you have good luck in Emerald Nightmare Mythic. If you're doing that next week, it's going to be great. I'm so looking forward to it. I'm so hyped. But thanks very much for watching, guys. I've been Sinestra, and I'll catch you in the next one.